Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Copilot Compass, where each week we take a deep dive into Microsoft 365 Copilot. As always, I have the pleasure of being joined by my esteemed colleague, fellow Copilot enthusiast, and our resident smart guy, Logan.
Thanks, Grant. Happy to be here.
Logan, why don't you tell the folks at home a little bit more about what they can expect in this week's episode?
Yeah. So as always, we're going to get started with our question of the week, and then we'll get into our topic, which is the researcher agent, which is one of the pre-built agents that comes with Copilot to help you do research. So it should be interesting. I'm excited to get into it. Yeah, and make sure you stay tuned to the end for a sneak preview of what we have coming up, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I know researchers, pretty new, hot off the presses here. We're sitting here as we record here in the second week of July 2025, but it's just come out in the last few months. Something that's a really cool piece of technology, can really help you build and really do in-depth research on a variety of different topics. So looking forward to sharing this one with you guys here today.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get started with our question of the week. And remember, you can submit your own question by leaving a comment on this video or by emailing the email address in the description. So this week, our question is, what's the onboarding process for incorporating Copilot into existing business systems?
Existing business systems. This is an interesting one. I'm trying to think of how I interpret this. Are we thinking like a business process or like a business group or organization as a whole? What's your interpretation?
I guess my interpretation was kind of the organization as a whole.
Okay.
Yeah, but now that I'm reading a little bit more carefully, I can see how you could definitely interpret it a couple of different ways. Yeah.
I think we'll take yours, or I think yours is simplest, if organization as a whole. Yeah, I think the it's not a one size fits all answer. It really depends on how many users you're talking about, what your rollout strategy is, because the reality is most companies aren't saying, "Hey, Microsoft 365 Copilot is really awesome. Let me go ahead and buy, 10,000 licenses for every single person in the organization." Like you're kind of what we're seeing a lot of is companies will find like a pilot department. They'll get, let's say 100 or a couple hundred licenses, deploy those there, start to see some value there, learn some lessons from the adoption strategy, and then, maybe enable it in other places. But with that in mind, like if let's just say, I think for the sake of this, we'll say it's, new company, company that's new to Copilot. They're getting it deployed, M365 Copilot, that is, in, let's say, the HR department, just for the sake of an example. Really, what you got to start with is a proactive awareness and desire campaign, to use a Prozis ADKAR model. That's an often overlooked step. I think a lot of times the way employees find out that they're getting an M365 Copilot license is they start to hear some kind of like water cooler conversations, or, like those types of, they start to hear rumors, you should say, like, okay, there's some artificial intelligence solutions coming in. And then they're invited to like some kind of a training, or they're sent a link to take like some training courses on how to use Copilot. Now, those training sessions are going to cover the knowledge base. It's going to teach them how to use the tools, but you want to make sure that you cover that awareness and desire early. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is you have to think about, especially the folks that are in like individual contributor levels within your organization, or like those knowledge workers, when they hear AI, they're going to start to think, oh, a machine's coming for my job. And that's not Copilot, or especially M365 Copilot. That's not its goal. It's not going to get rid of processes that you're doing. It's going to enhance your ability to do things quicker and easier, more efficiently, and, more effectively. So I think getting ahead of that and making sure that that message from leadership is coming out before the rumors start to swirl is super important, just on employee morale, and making sure that, that they're aligned with the organization's reasons for enabling Copilot, not sort of making their own assumptions. So again, often overlooked step, but really important to do and get ahead of those rumors. Then, as it comes time to start training folks, another important piece is to make sure that that training's occurring like right before or right at the time that you're deploying the licenses. Something that we've seen before is people do training either too early or too late. Like maybe there's some technical things that you're working through before you deploy it. So you train people, but then you don't actually give them access to the license for another, let's say, 2 months. Super difficult for them to retain that information. Like they're gonna forget it. They wrote down some notes, but they don't remember where they saved them because it's been a few months. Because it's not like, you train them and then they didn't just sit at their desk for 2 months and wait for it to be available. They're working on other things and maybe learning other pieces of their work. So they forget. So that training has to occur not too early, but it also can't occur too late because, especially for somebody that's maybe more tech savvy or they've heard of Copilot, they get the license, they're going to be excited about it and they're going to start trying it out. And a lot of people, and I know we've covered this before in previous episodes, like when they first start to use it, they treat it like they used to treat like a Bing or a Google search, where it's like keywords, short phrases, and they get frustrated because they're not getting exactly what they had in their mind. So that's where sometimes companies can start that training too late. Like they take the training, now they can see the error in their ways and they revise that, but you've already lost the chance to set up a good first impression. So this is honestly a topic I could go on for, half of a day on, but I think my two main points are awareness and desire through a communications campaign that beats the rumor mill. And then just-in-time enablement, we call it, like training that's going to occur like right before or right as they're getting their Copilot license. So I gave a very long-winded answer. I don't know, Logan, if you want to maybe interpret the question differently or anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you covered a lot of some of the big things. I think another important thing is having, one to a few people who are some of the early adopters who are,
Yeah.
really passionate about it, know a ton about it, and are going to be available there for questions because, no matter how many trainings you hold or how well they're run, people are going to have questions. And it's so much better to have somebody internal that they can turn to and ask about, because they'll know all the context of where these questions are coming from. So I think that's just like another key component when you're introducing Copilot into a business.
Yeah, super important. Finding those champions that are going to help enable this change and being sort of leaders within the team, to kind of drive the group forward. Definitely a good point.
Yeah,
All right. Should we talk researcher?
yeah, let's do it.
All right. So let's talk researcher. So researcher was announced in April of 2025. It went into preview mode and then went general availability in June of 2025. So just about a month ago as we're sitting here recording the podcast. Um, it is essentially a way to do in-depth research into a specific topic. That's the name. So how is it different than Copilot Chat? Well, one, it's an agent. So the way you navigate to it, you can still, if you're whether using Copilot on the web or using Copilot in Teams, it's going to be right there kind of on that left side pane where you'll see agents listed like as a subcategory. And you're going to see the researcher agent, you're going to see the analyst agent, and then any other agents that you've either created for yourself or your organization's deployed on your behalf. Researcher and analyst come with Microsoft 365 Copilot. So you have to be a licensed Copilot user in order to have access to these tools. It is not available with Copilot Chat. So you can't even, with agents, you can still get agents even as a Copilot Chat user through Copilot Studio and paying on the consumption model or message packs. That's not currently the case with Researcher. It's either you have it or you don't have it. Now, Researcher, the way it presents its findings are quite different, and the way it gathers information are quite different than Copilot Chat. First of all, the way you interact with it. So Copilot Chat is very conversational. I tell people it's just, treat it like you're talking to a human. Don't use short keywords. I wouldn't tell Logan if I am asking him to help me write an email to one of our customers. I'm not going to say, Logan, email customer items XYZ. I'm going to say, hey, Logan, can you please send an email to this customer? I'd like to make sure you cover these points. And that's the way we treat Copilot. Researcher, on the other hand, is not as conversational. It's not like you ask a direct question, it gives you a direct answer. It's going to take an in-depth look into the topic. It's oftentimes, too, going to have some kind of clarifying questions or guiding questions to you before it actually does its, research. So the way you interact with it is different. The findings that it presents are also different. Like I mentioned, Copilot Chat, you ask a direct question, it gives you a direct answer. Researcher is more like it presents it to you report style. So it's almost like a scholarly journal type of article. Introduction, topics, pros and cons, or competing views on the topic, and then a conclusion section. So very, very much reads like a scholarly journal, whereas a Copilot answer reads more like a short story. The way it gathers information is also quite different. So researcher is going to take some time. It needs to do some thinking. Chat, usually a pretty quick response. Um, the researcher too, so it's going to pull information differently. So researcher is using latest and greatest web-based information. So it's up to date. And it's going to prioritize reputable sources, reputable news sources, government sites, things like that, that it knows are telling the truth, or, we certainly hope at least. Copilot chat is using a knowledge base. So, it's got like a repository. It's got kind of its domain that it pulls from. Now you can tell Copilot chat, hey, I want information that was in the last 6 months, and then it will go grab the web-based information. But by default, it's using that LLM model. Whereas by default, researcher is using latest and greatest and reputable web-based sources. So that's really the main differences here. Now, one thing I do want to clarify here is if you are on the personal version of Copilot, you have seen in the last month Microsoft roll out different response options. So by default, it's got quick response. And this is what we're used to with Copilot chat. It's the quick 2-3 seconds direct response. There are some other drop downs that you do see now there as well. There's a deep thinker one. That's going to take more like 30 seconds. And that's going to be sort of a hybrid between this research model that we're talking about and the quick response standard Copilot chat response. There is also like I don't remember the exact name. It's like research or something like that. And that's not going to go to quite the depth that the researcher agent will, but it's closer. So those are the main differences. Where would you use them? I would say if you don't know which one to use, you should start with Copilot Chat. It's going to give you quicker responses. You can also find out quicker, like, okay, I'm not quite prompting it correctly, and restructure from there. Researchers more like, okay, we have a new customer that we're getting ready to meet with for the first time. Let's build out a report that shows the company's history, the growth that they've had in the last few years, leadership changes, news articles that have come out on them. Like that's a use case that I'm using a lot. So, or maybe it's like a new, we did legal last week. Maybe there's a new law that comes into your realm and you want to learn more about it. Research are going to be great for you there. It's going to give you in-depth stuff, and it's also going to very clearly cite those sources in a reputable way. It just general conversation, quick asks, things like that. You're better off with Copilot Chat. I say that for two reasons. One, chat, much quicker response, much more kind of user-friendly in that conversational nature, but also researcher does have some limitations. You can only use it, I believe it's 25 interactions a month, resetting at the first of each month. So now you can ask follow-up questions in that. So like, when we do our example here in a moment, we're going to give it a prompt. And if I continue to ask some clarifying questions around that same prompt, it's not going to count as a new, against my bank there of requests for the month. But if I start like a new topic, like let's say we're going to research the Boston Celtics, and then next we're going to research this upcoming customer meeting, those will definitely count as the same interaction. So there's a lot to kind of process here, but with that, I think it'd be simplest for us as a next step. Let's show you what researcher looks like. Does that sound good?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so here we are in Copilot Chat. For the sake of this demo, we're going to use the web-based version. I mentioned in our intro here earlier how I access researcher. It's under this agents category here. So I see the analyst, I see the researcher. These are deployed for anybody with an M365 Copilot license. I also see the visual creator, and then, these agents that are down here. These ones are ones that I built, like just kind of testing things out. But if you have agents that are deployed by your organization on your behalf, those will show up here, or any other ones that you've built for business processes. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate to this researcher icon, and you'll note that the look and feel of this is similar to Copilot Chat. I've got some suggested starter packs down here right below the window. I can add in and referenced files or other agents. Now we'll go ahead and pick a topic to research. So Logan, as always, when it comes to these things, I'm going to put you on the spot here. What topic we want to research?
Yeah. Let's say we're trying to do some sort of marketing deal with Oreo, the cookie brand company.
Fun, I like it. So we're marketing company, we're doing marketing services, we're getting ready to meet with, I don't know, is Oreo their own company, I guess? Or are they under like some kind of an umbrella?
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out. Maybe it's Carter.
Yeah.
Okay, we are preparing to meet with Oreo to talk about our marketing services. Okay, so what specifically do you want to know about Oreo?
Yeah. I guess
Go ahead.
yeah, some previous successful marketing campaigns.
Okay. Say maybe leadership structure.
Leadership structure. Yeah.
Um, significant news in the last 24 months. Let's say revenue and operational growth. What else? Company culture and values.
Okay. Yeah.
Anything else come to mind?
I think I can think of right now.
Yeah, we'll call it good enough for now. So what we'll do, we'll give it this prompt. Typically, researcher is going to have follow-up questions for us. So it's going to want to kind of, like we mentioned before, Copilot Chat takes your question, gives you a response. Researcher might guide you along that process. So this is, I've honestly never seen this go directly into producing the research. So it's going to ask me some things. It says, I see you want me to gather comprehensive information about Oreo to prepare for your meeting to make sure I understand your request. Are there any specific sources or type of documents you prefer for this information? Let's say one, we'll say reputable sources. We'll let it interpret what that means, but we'll say reputable. Uh, do you need this information in specific format? Let's say in a report, detailed report. Let's say detailed and comprehensive. Make sure it covers everything. Comprehensive. Oops, correct my typo there. Comprehensive report. And then the third one was, is there a particular focus or angle you want me to emphasize in the information about Oreo's marketing campaigns or company culture? Not particularly, I guess.
Yeah.
Anything we might want to know about the company that makes Oreos that would help us prepare and have a good understanding of their business. Okay. Now we'll see. Sometimes it might have some new follow-up questions for us based on the answers we gave or things it didn't ask the first time. Let's see what it says here. Okay, so this is a sign that it's got what it needs. So it pops up this bar here, and it's going to show us its thinking along the way. So we can say it's beginning its research, it's starting to pull together relevant sources. So one thing we'll show you here is you can do this show more here. This in its early stages, it takes a little bit to go through some of these basic things like pulling in kind of that foundational layer of understanding. But this, is going to take some time. If you are sitting at your computer and you're staying by your machine, this will kind of emphasize for you the level of depth that researcher goes into versus Copilot Chat. When we were doing that sort of introductory piece, we talked a little bit about, hey, with the right prompting in Copilot Chat, you can replicate a lot of the features of researcher. We mentioned that by default, researcher cites its sources. with Copilot Chat, you can ask it to cite its sources, but it's not going to be like written out in the structure that you might see in Researcher. Where Researcher, you could tell it the specific format or reference type that you want, like in any of those scholarly formats. Um, the other thing is the asking it to draw web-based information, latest sources rather. Researcher's going to do that by default. With Copilot, you either have to ask it a topic that's recent or say use, recent news. Otherwise, it's going to pull from that kind of LLM, that model. But it's a lot deeper here with this researcher function. So you're starting to see this come out. I'm seeing it says beginning research, gathering background information, clarifying company details, formulating a comprehensive report, compiling a detailed dossier, clarifying report focus. Now it's starting to gather reliable sources. What we're going to see here as this goes is it's going to get down deeper and deeper and deeper. So we might see it say that it's, analyzing its executive tier. It might even pull from like LinkedIn, the company's website, business journals, things like that. It's going to take it a while. Now, this is going to take, depending on the depth of the topic. I've seen it take as little as a few minutes, and I've seen it take, 10 minutes or so. So what I typically am going to do is once I kind of I see that it's going to do its thing, it's got its information, especially if it's like, something very uh, detailed and large about its information that we're asking for, like we have here. I'm either going to, use that opportunity to sort of step away from my computer, maybe go grab some water, some coffee, let the dog out, things like that, and come back. I could work on other things that aren't in Copilot while this is doing it, but just know that unless you have like really good internet that you're working on, that this is going to take up some bandwidth. So with that in mind, we are going to fast forward here. We're going to let Copilot do its thing, let our researcher agent do its thing, and we'll rejoin you here as the results finish up. All right, so we're back. That took us, I'd say, I don't know what you think, Logan, like maybe 20 minutes?
Yeah, about 20 minutes.
Awesome, yeah. So we can see here it's going to be long. So we're not going to go through and, read this verbatim because we'd be here until next week. And we don't want you to miss next week's episode. So
Oof.
it's got an overview, key insights, when it's founded. We got some icons up here, some background for us. Let's move forward. So it's got a nice timeline for us that we can take a look at here as well. Um, Pretty cool structure to this leadership structure. So here's this section, products and brand portfolio, 65 new flavors worldwide since 2012. We were talking earlier about favorite flavors. This is, I guess, 65. That's about 5 times more than I was going to guess.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, we'll keep scrolling here. Previously successful marketing campaigns, Dunk in the Dark, Daily Twist. I don't remember either of those.
Mhm.
Wonder-Filled Anthem, Oreo Eclipse, The Note, uh, Oreo Codes. Yeah, so it talks about some of these campaigns that they've done. Significant news, strong financial results in July 2023. So like Mondelez too, FYI, parent company that does Oreo. So they've got some news there. But we can start to see, I mean, this is, we're now only about halfway through this report. So much, much more detailed than what you've seen uh, outside of researcher issues in the chat. Revenue growth, core focus, product lines, challenges to growth, summary. Okay, now we're getting into the culture and values that we asked about. Love our consumers and brands. grow every day, do what's right. Yeah, so we can see some of their values there. So you can start to see how this could be really valuable for us going in. We can connect with them a little bit better because we understand the values that are important to them as a company. We understand, what they've been through the last few years. We can also talk a little bit more intelligently about some of the, we're going in your scenario you presented was marketing pitch. So we can see a little bit of what they've done before. And then here's that conclusion section. So again, written like a scholarly journal, had an introduction, broke down the various topics that we asked it to break down, and then this conclusion right here. So pretty cool. It's got all my sources right down here for me too here. It's going to be probably somewhat long as far as these resources go, but they're referenced throughout the document as they go. And you can see that these are easily, I can just click on this and take me, right to the link where it got that source if I want to look into a little bit more. So pretty cool. We've got our lengthy report. So glad we're able to kind of show you how this works in practicality. In today's journey of the Copilot Compass, we talked about Researcher, the new agent that's available to you as a licensed Microsoft 365 Copilot user. We touched a little bit about, what Researcher is and how it's different than Copilot Chat and the analyst agent that's also become available now. So we hope you found this example we showed you and kind of some of those overview points valuable.
Yeah, it seems like there's definitely a ton of use cases for researcher here, from, business like we were talking about to even, starting your own research papers, for
Sure.
whatever reasons you might need that for. So yeah, super cool demonstration. And if you enjoyed it, please do us a favor and like, subscribe, and comment. And remember that we have our Q&A sessions every week, so make sure you submit your questions. And new episodes are released every Tuesday. And stay tuned to get a sneak preview of what we have coming next.
Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.